Right, let's get to today's topic because we're going to talk a little bit about why our viewers should consider introducing their clients to somebody like Nedbank Private Wealth in the first place. So let's go through what are the benefits.
Okay, well, in terms of what we are, so it's probably worth highlighting that we're a boutique private bank and investment manager, and we lead with wealth planning. So if I break that down slightly, we're boutique. We look after a very niche, sort of small niche of high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals and their families, and they require a very agile, high touch point, high service and sort of solution driven proposition. In terms of the private banking and the investment, so we look after those clients from their banking, lending and investment needs from an onshore and also an offshore perspective. So we were an offshore bank that came onshore, which goes against the sort of the general flow of things. But it means we have a really good understanding of that international aspect. Most of our clients will have some kind of international footprint.
Sure.
And then the leading with emotional wealth planning. What does that mean? In reality, we just spend an awful lot of time getting to know our clients. So really drilling down and finding out what makes them tick from what are their goals, what do they want to achieve, but more importantly, where they are now and where they want to get to and why they want to get there, what those emotional drivers are. And what that does is, because we spend the time really understanding the clients and we lead with wealth planning, which is quite unusual, it enables us to have a really full understanding of the client's needs, which means we can then tell where there's other areas that we need to refer them out for additional advice, whether that be to a lawyer or a tax advisor, for example.
Okay, that sounds very, very good. And as you say, very sort of joined up way of doing things. So if I were a tax advisor, for example, wanting to work with you, wanting a relationship with Nedbank, for instance, what are the sort of questions that I should be asking? And I guess more importantly, what are the kind of answers that I'd be looking to get back?
Okay. There's obvious questions in our sector that everyone knows that would probably be on that list, which things like investment return, rates on lending, rates on deposits. Problem with those things is it changes a lot. So, as we all know. So I wanted to look at what questions they should be asking, or what I think is relevant long term. And I think it falls into three sections really. One is, or three areas that I would look at: security, people and support levels.
Okay, so let me dig a little bit deeper into that. When you're saying security, what are we talking about? Are we talking about bouncers? Are we talking about safes, locked safes, laser grids?
No, none of the above. There's all sorts of different ways you can look at the security of a financial institution. But from a banking perspective, I think we look at deposits. So, and there's two things there. One, what is the source of those deposits? Is there a diverse source of those funds, or is it one or two big corporates? So for us, it's many high net worth individuals that put them. So that's nicely diverse. And then the other side, or the other thing to look at, would be how much of those deposits do we loan out? What's that ratio? Okay. Most retail banks will be around 80-85%. We're at 25%. And what does that mean? Well, if there is a run on the bank for whatever reason, if you're at 85%, there's not much wiggle room before you've got a problem. Whereas at 25%, it's actually, you've got a fair bit of runway. And I suppose it's an insight into the conservative nature of that business and how prudent they are.
Okay. And I guess there's also a lot of sort of trust in terms of if you're putting your money somewhere, I mean, in a very simplistic way, you want to know that place is going to be around in years to come?
I suppose that's sort of point number one for someone. If there is a third party referring to us, that's probably the thing that's very important.
Yeah, and sort of need that sort of reassurance. And also, people like people, right? So I suppose a big part of what you do is being personable.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
On a basic level.
Certainly in my role, yeah.
Yeah.
The people thing, which is obviously one of those areas that I think need to be looked at closely. There's two things really, or two areas. One is time, one is continuity. And when I say time, I mean that the amount of time a relationship manager or as a banker, a private banker can get to spend either with the client or
Right.
working on behalf of the client.
Okay.
If you've got hundreds of clients versus someone who's got 50 clients, you can't provide the same level of attention, service, curiosity,
Sure.
which goes back to my first point about really understanding the client. You simply can't do it
Yeah.
if you don't have those attractive ratios.
Yeah.
And then the continuity. I'd say if you're looking at someone you're going to pass over for a long-term relationship, you want to make sure that they're not having a new person looking after them every year, every 6 months, every couple of years. So what is the tenure for people at those businesses? Do they stay for a long time, or have they maybe not quite got the culture right, and therefore people leave, in which case you're having to have similar conversations?
And then you've got to build all that trust again as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally get that. And then what about in terms of giving support out to your clients as well?
Well, the support for the clients is a given. I think the important thing is the support for the intermediaries. So for when someone sends us, well, if we have an intermediary that's not referred to us before, in particular, there has to be a real hand-holding process.
Right.
Because when they first receive the documents for onboarding a client, there's a lot of information there, and actually it can be a very time-consuming event getting those forms prepped and ready. So we actually have those meetings. We do a Teams meeting if face-to-face isn't an option.
Yeah.
And we go through those. Application forms, and I think so. For me, that would be an important thing to be able to check what level of service do they get from that perspective. To make sure that it's an easy process.
Yeah.
As the professional advisors are busy, they don't have time to be messing around and getting confused with forms.
Sure. So you want that kind of easy onboarding process.
Exactly.
Got it. So that is very helpful. And if any of our viewers are looking around for a wealth management company to work with that will really give them a foundation to find the best fit for them and their clients, I guess then that's sounding like that's exactly what you're providing.
Absolutely. And we are making a big push on having that integrated approach. So where historically, and I think it's still on the mainstream, if you have a client and if we need to send someone out for advice, historically you would send that client out to an advisor. They would do that piece of work and come back.
Right.
We're making a real push to make it much more integrated. So rather than sending the client out, we're bringing the advisor to the table. We're giving them a seat at the table.
Yeah, so that you can be a spectator in that conversation.
Yeah, so that everyone's party to the same information.
Got it.
Nothing slipped through. Clients don't miss out a particular bit of information that they shouldn't have. It's more of what we're moving more towards is that quasi-family office.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if you did a Venn diagram, I bet there's so much overlap between tax and legal requirements and the advice that you can give. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.